Hey family, happy Wednesday. Darlene A. Anderson here, entrepreneur, personal and professional development consultant, author of Not Without a Fight, 10 Ways to Win When It Appears You've Already Lost, and your social media friend. Welcome. As I always say, if you are joining us for the very first time or if you are a returning viewer, I appreciate you just the same. I thank you for joining me on today. I ask that you like, share, and subscribe accordingly and click that notification bell to be in the know of the latest happenings as they are happening. Okay, family, this is a little different for us, right? I'm going to take you guys inside of a video that I did for our Facebook page a couple of months ago that really spoke to my heart, and I hope that you appreciate it just the same as it relates to looking at what we have as advantages and privileges over others to help us to appreciate life even more. It's really hard out here every day working towards personal and professional goals. So when you can take a moment and say, you know what, I never thought about that as a blessing, as an advantage, as a privilege, so to speak, it definitely helps keep you in the game a little bit longer. Tune in, fam, and I will see you guys out here on Friday. I apologize. I had a dental visit, and unfortunately, I'm unable to hold water in my mouth for long periods of time, let alone conversation with you all on today. I'll see you guys soon. Be well. I want to share with you all because sharing is caring. And as you all know, I am a personal development consultant. And in order for you to feel comfortable with me, right, I have to have a bit of transparency myself, correct? And anybody that has worked with me knows that my testimonies are definitely an open book for everyone because, again, sharing is caring. And we need to know that we're not in this alone, this race, this thing called life, right? We need to know that there are other people that have been through situations just like us, and they have weathered the storms, and you need to know this information so you can weather it just to say privilege. When you think about privilege, I know when I do, I think about advantages that one may have over another. What comes to mind for me, inevitably, like I really can't help it, but I think about maybe classism. I think about hierarchies. I think about people of maybe a higher socioeconomical status advancing over me. All of these things, especially being somebody that grew up in inner city, right? Somebody that was of poverty, right? I think about these things. Like I definitely don't consider myself to be of privilege, not at all. Well, let me tell you guys, I was actually blown away last fall during a class that I had taken, human development. Many of you know that I am pursuing a degree in mental health counseling. So I am in class and my professor is going over this privilege checklist and we're just like going through it, and I'm getting angrier and angrier as I'm going through it and boisterous. You all know I'm going to speak my mind. I'm like, Professor, I just don't think that this is privilege. I've never even thought about privilege like this. Now I know that, we hear a lot growing up in the church, disadvantage, especially in social services, not even in the church, social services, you hear about disadvantaged populations, people that don't have really the ability, rather it's like a mental or physical limitation. There are different things that don't allow them to advance the way that you do, right? We don't take those type of things for granted because you see it each and every day. We have like fingers, we have arms, we have legs, we can see, we can hear, these things. We're able to take care of ourselves. We're able to think about our thoughts and to execute our thoughts. And a lot of people don't have that ability, right? So you're like, those things, you don't take those things for granted. And as my grandma used to say, you give thanks to the Lord for those things because everyone doesn't have those type of, and I guess it is, advantages in life. But I never thought about the simple things, that we are privileged to have, so to speak, that others don't. And I'll give some examples. So getting back to class, I'm in class and I'm like, well, I don't agree with this, right? So he's like, well, how many of you are like, firstborn? And I'm raising my hand, How many of you had an opportunity to walk to school? And I'm raising my hand. How many of you never went without lights? Raising my hand. How many of you had heat? Raising my hand. You know, all of these things. How many of you come from a two-family household? Raising my hand. A two-parent household. Raising my hand. Elevator, raising my hand. All of these things. And I'm like, yeah, but I grew up in a hood. I grew up during an era where we had gun violence. We had drugs. You know, I was a food stamp kid growing up. All of these things. My parents were not able to work long periods of time. I dealt with all of these things. I saw what it was like with gangs and again, drugs and all of these things. I lived in an inner city community that was parvish. You know, I knew what welfare cheese and powdered water was like. I knew these things. So how are you telling me that even growing up in a hood, I am privileged? It bothered me. But then I started thinking about it, and I started hearing some of my peers talking about their experiences and what it was to be poor to them and what it was to have to walk to school for miles and what it was like sleeping with their cousins, and they had mice and roaches curling over them. I listened to stories about certain people that didn't have an opportunity to go to school, and they had to get secondhand education from maybe their older brother, their older sister. I listened to some people tell stories about not knowing their parents ever. And I'm like, wow, I get it. Not that I ever took those things for granted, but I never measured it in a way where I was literally in a place to say, that is privilege. And honestly, to this day, I don't walk around and say, yeah, I'm privileged, but I do acknowledge maybe some things that I didn't. Those were my advantages. So I ask you on today, what are your advantages over another? What is something that you haven't taken as a blessing, as a gift, as something that maybe someone else doesn't have? And have you given thanks for that thing? It's so easy to wake up and think about all of the things that we have to do. I'm so guilty of that. From the moment I open my eyes, I have to condition myself to think positive because there's so many negative things coming at me at one thing. What I have to do for the day, what I have to do for tomorrow, all of these things. But the reality of it is none of us are promised tomorrow. We only are promised today in this moment, not even a full day. And this moment is the only thing that we're guaranteed. And in that, what have we been given that we should celebrate?